Hi everyone. First of all, I'm Tony Barker. I wear several hats. I'm a front-end specialist at Annertech, the lead developer at LocalGov Drupal, and the media track lead for Drupal CMS, which is the reason that I'm talking about this topic today, which is images with Gareth, and how we know each other too.
Yeah. I'm Gareth. I'm here at the University of Edinburgh, and I'm accessibility track lead. There's my details. So apparently, we're subject matter experts.
Yeah, accidental, you might say.
Yeah.
We didn't intend on going in this direction, but it kind of just happened. I have skills in lots of fields. There's no particular reason why media should be a specialism.
And I'm accessibility expert, apparently, because I wanted to learn recipes. And that was a good avenue to get into it. But I do know about accessibility, so. But anyway, so I am in there. And there's me again.
Photo credit, Paul Johnson, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're going to do another one? Okay, we're similar scenario. We've got slides available if you want to follow along. Quick, before I turn it. I'll just wait till everybody's camera goes up and then turn it off. There we go. Good. Okay, so we're going to be covering what the problem is ultimately with images and media in Drupal, and talking a bit about all the kind of areas that covers. There is solutions, but there's a lot of work that needs to get this into core, and different from most other talks that I've kind of witnessed at camps and stuff. This is more of a what can you guys do rather than this is how we fixed it, or this is how you can do this kind of thing. So it's a different style of talk. This is a big problem. Media module was introduced in 8.4. Media library was introduced in 8.6 with the promise that you can reuse images, upload it once and use it everywhere. It's going to be brilliant. Obviously, other people have talked about context. Images, the same image can be used, but depending on how that image is used, you might need different alt text. This is an accessibility training session that John Jameson, he wrote the Editorial module. He runs this at Princeton. Harvard have done some articles about contextual alt text as well, and that's what I'm going to do next, is try and emulate these two use cases in Drupal. I'm not going to do it live, I'm not that silly. And you can speed it up as well, so this is me just going through the process of uploading an image, putting in some alt text for this article, choosing my focal point, and then speed writing the rest of this article. See how quick I am. Okay, and you'll see that the focal point module, I've tweaked that image a wee bit so that the image style kind of highlights the problem that we've got. And then as soon as we try and reuse this image, 2 guesses what happens. The whole video crashes. No. Yeah, so we'll see in a minute what's going to happen. Oh, it's the wrong focal point, so I can go into this. Of course I can change it. Change the alt text. This is alt text about the red brick building, which is what this article is about. Change the focal point. There we go. Perfect. Works. Excellent. Well done. Uh-oh. We've got the same focal point on both images. So the current workaround, and I think some of the UX studies that people have done will highlight that what you end up with is you can get different images on your different blog posts, but the answer is always you end up with an image library that's full of the same image. Yeah, and then if you actually try and use any decorative images in your site, actually there is obviously valid use cases for that, potentially, maybe. If the image is not actually adding anything, why put some alt text in it? If the image actually contains information that's adjacent, maybe you're just doubling up that information, which again isn't useful. But you can use that nice little decorative widget, decorative image widget, and mark it as decorative, which means you don't have to put any alt text in, but then you're actually just compounding the problem. And I suppose that's proper equality. Users that can see it can't tell which image they've got to use, and then people that need assistive technology, they can't tell which images it is either, so it makes it even more difficult to choose which image. So what do? Just upload one, another one, same thing. This isn't a new issue. This is an issue that's been on Drupal.org for 4 years, or it was postponed 4 years ago because there's a lack of direction. And until there is that direction and impetus to kind of get this in, this is kind of not going to get solved.
So the quote there on the postponed issue said, lack of direction and a plan. So I've been on a journey of discovery for the last...
Just that one to move forward.
Okay. For the last few years, and even more so since I've been working on Drupal CMS on the media track. And my journey has been one of confusion to begin with, finding solutions, getting some clarity, talking to somebody else with a different case or a different opinion, going back to a bit of a state of confusion, and then somewhere in the middle getting a bit of clarity. And I chose this kind of diagram from the Interaction Design Foundation to illustrate that trying to solve these problems is not going to be a linear process like we're building a product where we can define it clearly, design it clearly, build it and then ship it. This is going to be an iterative process and a non-linear process where we need to keep prototyping things, improving things, testing things, and the key thing is to empathize with editors trying to use Drupal who don't understand things like entity references, and empathizing with people trying to use the website and getting a robotic alt text, if anything at all. So defining best practices is really tricky, and one of the reasons for that is that we're not all clear on what's the right approach. Trusted sources like the gov.uk blog and Harvard, where Gareth took the earlier example.
That's actually the same article.
It's the same article, and here it's literally describing what's in the image. So I don't know if you can read that, but a prison governor and 2 prison officers are conversing in a hallway. They are smiling. That is a typical kind of alt text input if you're doing really well. If you're not doing really well, then maybe there isn't one at all, or it just says.
Interestingly, this is probably the key reason that I got involved in this and started thinking about this. Was I was approached by Jamie in the AI initiative to try and improve AI alt text and see what AI can do for accessibility. And one of the things that I was thinking about was these actual very literal descriptions are probably really good for using in media library. So if you have somebody coming in, browsing the media library, having a really good description of what that image is will help them choose the right image. But as soon as they use that and they change the alt text to make it more contextual or to make it relevant to the blog post they're using, it then makes it inaccessible for the next person following in. So quite quickly I recognized that actually there's a bigger problem to solve before we get to AI alt text.
So I chose this particular image. Some people might know who this man is because we're in Scotland and I'm an Ipswich Town fan. So John Walk is a man who wears many hats.
And a
Liverpool, a Liverpool FC double title winner, an Ipswich Town legend, a Scotland World Cup hero, and a movie star in Escape to Victory. So depending on what the article is about, we might describe this image to somebody without thinking about writing alt text, just having a conversation with the person next to us. We would be very unlikely to robot, that is a picture of a man smiling wearing a red top. We'd probably say, oh, he did this in the World Cup, or give it some context to do with the subject. The reason we can go really, really deep into the best practices. If we have that information in a caption, then technically we shouldn't have alt text, I believe. My understanding also isn't perfect. But then what becomes the best practice if you're using an automated testing tool that is barking at you that the alt text is missing? Do you tick the compliance box to make sure you've got alt text? Or do you use the best practice, which is to have a caption and not use the alt text on that page? And then maybe on a teaser somewhere else where there isn't a caption, you do include the alt text. So even deciding what to do is quite tricky, and if we can't understand it as experts, then it's very difficult for people who need to enter that to know what they should do. This is a kind of a similar example. So in this case where we might be linking to something, instead of the alt text being of a globe or a picture of the world, that's not relevant at all if our link is to the international students page or global shipping or global offices or something like that. In that case, we should tell the screen reader where the link is going to send them to. So just to cover off some of the research that I've done recently and over the last couple of years, and just describe what kind of came out of that. During the Drupal CMS research, the problem that we're talking about today, contextual alt text, was something that 18 months ago people were reporting to us was a problem. So the audience for this questionnaire was agencies and Drupal teams, and this is something that's long been identified as a weakness of the system. And for LocalGov Drupal, improving media management, we've done some workshops with content groups, and the organisations here I've spoken to just 2 weeks ago, Hammersmith and Fulham Council, and Chicken Agency gave me a demo of their solution, which is a customised solution to be able to do these things that we want to do. But not everybody has got the budget to, or inclination, or the will, or even the knowledge to understand what customisations need to be made. So what we want to achieve is to improve this upstream in contrib and core. And the LocalGov Drupal research kind of reiterated that not only is alt text a problem, but also image sizes, cropping, navigating the image library, and some other things. So if we want to come up with the right architecture, we need to be thinking about the big picture, the whole system, and not just one part of it. Also did some competitor analysis and looked at how these content management systems handle media. And I'm just going to do one demo. I'm not sure what to press. Maybe
that should be just press that button.
That one? Okay. So this is an example of the Wix media editor, and there are some strengths I think it has over the tools that we have in Drupal at the moment. I quite like how we can select an aspect ratio and do our crops in the same place, adjust a bit of brightness, adjust a bit of contrast. At the moment we have the image style system if we wanted to make an adjustment like that, but it's not intuitive for editors. And there are some things there that go further than I think Drupal should. I don't necessarily think we should be applying overlays, and you can erase objects and things, but after a very long time, the output is really poor. But I think it's inevitable that in 5 years' time, this will be a common thing that people do with images in Drupal, in painting, cutting out objects and that sort of thing. Yeah, not great.
Go on, remove someone.
The cutout demo went even worse, I think. So this is what we get. But as I say, that's inevitable. So when we're thinking about architecture, we need to be thinking ahead. So one of the things I think we could easily adopt is a better UI for how we handle aspect ratios. And from that research, one of the decisions for LocalGov Drupal was to simplify the options, because there are lots and lots of aspect ratios to choose from, and it's confusing for people to try and interpret what the aspect ratios even mean when they come to render on the page. Also looking at front-end performance, another aspect that's really important is when we render our page, we need to make sure that we don't load a massive image that's going to use lots of data on a mobile phone, or a really kind of grainy image. So part of this is actual web design, so designing components not to use massive banner images if they're unnecessary. And this is a particularly interesting problem, how to do calculations to render an image for the right size when we have something like a page builder with columns, an unknown number of columns. So how could we do programming so that whether we have a 2-column grid, a 1-column grid, or a 3-column grid, we get a sensible image size out at the end. One thing that I was kind of mindful of with the research is that we are all used to these tools, so we have inherent bias, and focal point for Drupal CMS was a clear winner. But is that because people are thinking about the tools we already have rather than things that we could have if we imagine them? So just a couple of things on innovation. So Drupal Canvas, which you can play with now in Drupal CMS, is on the way to solving some of these problems at least, and it's worth checking out what they do. But they have done away with the image style system entirely, so that the image markup is controlled in templates, and it's not very sophisticated at the moment, but I think this is the right path and the right direction to go in, so that you could set a few settings and then not have to worry about configuring hundreds and hundreds of image styles to get performant renders. The AI Context Control Center is a great innovation for AI where we could, we can. It's only a sandbox at the moment. It doesn't have a release, but it works. We can set a tone of voice for our whole website. So for alt text, we could have some global information that tells AI we want to have a formal tone to our alt text, or we want to make it approachable, or we want to inject some humour. So that's a great project to have a look at. And then I don't know if it will work. I'm also working on a prototype for bringing object detection into the Drupal AI initiative. This particular video is 8 years old and doesn't really use AI. It's open source computer vision, which has algorithms and a JavaScript library that you can use to detect objects in an image. So this is an example of face detection. And I can see a use case for this where when you upload an image, there's some automatic detection and you don't need to set a focal point. It sets that focal point over the faces, and then you could override it if you wanted to.
And the ideal thing about that context AI thing is if you set your tone, there's no reason that the AI can't look at the blog post you're writing and go, oh, the red brick building is the focus of this article. I'm going to find the red brick building and make that the focal point. You don't even need to think about what's relevant, because the AI should be able to do that. But
so just in summary, we're focusing here on contextual overrides, but in order to make the right decisions and have the plan that Adam was talking about when he postponed that issue, we need to look at all these pain points and problems. So the path to core, how do we get there? Coming back to this postponed issue, a little bit more detail from what the ask was really at the time. We need to meet core UX and accessibility gates. Well, I question that because we don't at the moment in core. So I think we can...
And I think that's a big key point. This is broken already, so anything we do to make this better is going to be an improvement. It's not going to make things worse.
We need to come up with a plan first. Well, Gareth and I think we have a plan, and we're going to show you shortly. We need collaboration with UX and Ali folks. We have some great people in the room today. We need some funding and some time from these people. I'm not sure we're ever going to get a big pot of cash to work on this, but there are, I think, enough people who are passionate, and there's enough need here for us to make some big strides forward.
Yeah. So this is a different issue from that last one, but it is another comment from Adam, Fina Proxima, and he's kind of bullet pointed there what needs to happen to get this kind of thing in. And then he has another thing. If we had a working battle-tested prototype of this functionality, then that's going to be a big, step forward. Yeah, and actually solving this in Contrib and trying to get this fixed is the way to get something to move. And right now it is technically possible. There is a big module cocktail. Most of these modules have been created off the back of merge requests of someone trying to fix this problem, creating a merge request, and then people just kind of bite shedding it a bit, or maybe not agreeing on it, so they've kind of went, I'm going to build this so we can do this prototype. This particular cocktail is using the focal point module, and this is it working. So here, I'm going to do the same process as I did in the last demo, using the same image. That's a more generic kind of alt text that can be used in the media library. Then we can come in here, you'll recognize this process from the last time. I'm going to choose that one image, put some text in. That's a generic focal point. If I edit it here, this is saying this is referenced and it's in the context of the parent item. I'm going to change the alt text there and choose a new focal point. You might be able to see some of these focal points, how they reflect in different page views, and you can see there that the image is nicely created with a nice focal point. Again, it's different blog posts with a different focus. One of the things that the hope was, we're using SEO Yoast in Drupal CMS, and maybe taking that focus from that might be able to help AI pick what better AI text we can use. But you can see there that different focus point, and straight off the bat, it's, we've got a different focal points and different alt texts. Technically, this is possible again with if you have another crop tool that you like. This is for image widget crop. I'm not going to demo it because basically because Drupal CMS was all set up to use focal point, and I didn't really want to reconfigure all that just for.
But I have tried it out on LocalGov Drupal, and it does work. It uses a different field type, so there's a challenge there.
Yeah.
But we have tools.
There is a lot of issues with this. There's bespoke kind of things you need to do to get it working. But the demo did show you that we can reuse images now. We can use contextual overrides for alt text and focal point. Technically, this would work if you switch off decorative images for the image library. You can then enable it for contextual things, so you could have non-informational images used contextually, but they all leave the default intact. The issues that need to be solved still are how do you convey what's happening to people, and this is probably where we need, other people to kind of get involved, because developers only think about development. We're thinking, oh, that's an entity reference. Of course, that's obvious, but it's not. We've got this kind of thing happening. This crop definition affects non-overrided usage of this image. But
Gareth and I actually have solved this problem while we're working on the slides.
We were doing the slides and we were going, how do we convey that this is complex? And then you go, hang on, it's already fixed. Views do that. They have this idea where, you can say it's only affecting all displays, revert to the default. You've got apply to this display. So views actually does this kind of contextual stuff, and it works out the difference between are you going to just use the default, make it clear that you're using the default. If you want to override it, you can use language that we recognize already. Probably there's a lot of UX tests to make sure that this is actually right. This might not work. This might just be a design pattern that we've just always used, and that's why we think it works great. But
yeah.
There's more work to be done there as well. So this is where it comes to what we need. I've forgotten where we go with this. Yeah, try them out if you can. Image widget crop, focal point, use it. Try and get these contextual images working. Figure out what's complex. Say what's confusing. Say what needs to be better. If you've got any ideas about how to make the language better, that needs to be pushed up, and we need to get talking about these issues and kind of say, oh, it would be way better if we did this, way better if we did that. If you ever do try those modules, they're kind of just literally just bundled out from MRs. So if you put them together, you do need to run update DB. Nobody's gone into nice installers and things like that. But yeah.
So a lot of what's needed isn't development. It is ideation, thinking about UX, thinking about language.
These aren't accurate, by the way.
Yeah, these are kind of arbitrary bar graphs. They don't actually represent anything, except that I think we've got the best practices more or less covered. We know how things should work from a best practice point of view. We've got a fair idea of the UX and UI side. There are some architectural challenges, some big ones to think about, and there is a developer resource, but there's no point trying to build this until we know exactly what it is we want to build.
Yeah.
And there are some limitations, as I said, for if we adopted this for LocalGov Drupal, we would have to change field types, which would involve a little data migration. Thinking back to Paul's session this morning for the University of Cambridge's design system and website system, you'd have to think really carefully about adopting a module that only 38 sites are using at the moment, because that might change.
Especially one that's minimally maintained as well.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, there needs to be a lot more usage of this. This needs to stabilise a lot before it's ready.
So for those complex cases, it's not ready, but for individual sites, there's probably no reason why you shouldn't be doing these things.
Or at least testing them out.
Yeah.
You want to do your transformation things.
Yeah, and this is a diagram that made sense to me yesterday. An architectural problem. So let's say that we started with a square, that's our original image, and we wanted to create 4 derivatives that were similar, 4 rectangles and 4 circles that were similar. At the moment, with this solution, I'd have to do 8 pieces of work to get there. I'd have to override it 8 times. So
this is the kind of ideation we're looking for, you know.
So should there be something in the middle way, maybe you can clone an entity type or something like that, something in a different kind of media entity.
Or just share the transformation.
So that you can make that transformation once and then use it several times and save a lot of work. I don't know how common this use case is. I think in most cases people probably don't need to do this, but it's something that.
But then looking at the Wix thing, if you have the brightness, you might want to do that to your global image, and then somebody else might want to maybe change the contrast on it and then share that. So there's a lot of different transformations that can happen to images, and we do need to think about the future.
Yeah. So the action, improve what we have today. Don't try and make it all perfect, because we will just never get there. Try and introduce
new things,
granular new things, whether it's core or improving the contrib things. Looking at the issue queues on these contrib modules, testing them, implement the things in the wild, find problems in real cases where we can, and bang the drum. So communicate that this is an issue and that there is a solution to it.
Yeah, don't just keep using the tried and tested workarounds and ending up with 200 images that are the same. You need to bang the drum, complain about that, and say we want this fixed, and let's kind of get some traction around it. So here's some references. There's alt text articles, how to write alt text, what's the best practices, and as we showed you, the articles themselves contradict each other. That's the module list that I was using there. I don't know why it's gone, some of them have gone capitalized, but these are a bunch of issues that I found that are all related to this, various things. But that top one there, that usability meeting demo, Ralph Kohler, who's very active in the community, he goes through adding and removing images and setting up various things, doing a lot of this stuff, and just points to a lot of the problems that we have existing already in core media. And it's a really good demo just to watch to see what things could be fixed. And some of those other ones they're all related to what we've just been watching. So there's some discovery sessions.
Some issues that outline what we found and what we decided when we looked at this for LocalGov Drupal, and the meter issue for media in Drupal CMS, and similarly for the media track for the AI initiative as well. Further reading there. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
No time for questions, sorry.
We're almost on time for our coffee break, but I think we can have a couple of questions if people have. Emma raising. That's the cube there, by the way, beside you. She left it there.
Well, thank you. That was a brilliant talk. There was so much in that, and thank you for taking on this, bravely taking this on, because you're right, it does need to change. When I tested how people uploaded images, I could not get people to not think about, I'm talking about the alt text part of your talk, to think that there was another way of attaching alt text to an image other than attaching alt text to an image in the media library. And when you showed Canvas, I'm thinking, could that be something we look into? Because that's a very visual builder. You have the option to look at what is attached to your image in terms of the fields. It's much more visual rather than when you're looking at it in the node editing.
Yeah, I think so. But I think this is one of these kind of things that when this innovation happens, this is going to need to be fixed, because ideally what you want is for them to drop an image in and go, I'm going to change the alt text, and you want that to be contextual. You don't want them to be thinking, oh, I'm now changing that alt text for every other image.
And they're not either, because they're thinking about the image rather than within something like
Within the
Canvas
blog
is
post.
visual. You can actually see it and you get the context a lot easier. So I wonder, like maybe you break it out into pieces and you take the alt text as one thing and look at how that could, now, well, Canvas is coming, right, soon, what is available now, but that might get people thinking about, hang on, we could do a better job with the alt text, which then might lead to thinking about focal point and so on.
Yeah, so at the moment, Canvas uses the regular media library, and it's an opportunity to throw away the old things that don't work and reimagine them, so definitely.
I like the idea of override, so the literal and contextual alt text. So when you upload an image to media library, I'm thinking you should probably put the literal alt text that first time. Then when as an editor, I'm going to use that image because somehow you found it.
Exactly.
That's another part.
But
I'm going to use that image, but I don't like the literal alt text. I want to override that to my red brick story or
Absolutely.
whatever.
And
But
I
then
think
that requires having alt text attached to every instance, so multiple alt text, right?
absolutely. And I think, to touch on your point, finding images will become easier because you won't have 10 versions of the same image. You can actually reuse that one image that's been uploaded, and the problem then kind of gets fixed if you use asset managers, digital asset manager, where you've got a bunch of images you can choose from, and they are quite literal alt text. Pull them in and then use them as you like. If you can crop them specific to your use case, you might be able to stretch them and kind of go, okay, I only want that bit of it. You're not editing the original. You're fixing the contextual version of that image.